Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Four Weddings and a Funeral, 1994, the second film in our current miniseries, Rom-Com Redux, revisiting favorite romantic comedies. The film was directed by Mike Newell and stars Hugh Grant and Andie MacDowell. It was the first of several films written by Richard Curtis, who used his own experiences as a frequent wedding guest as inspiration for his screenplay. First to star Hugh Grant, and was Grant's great breakout performance on the international screen. Curtis said the movie was a romantic film about love and friendship that swims in a sea of jokes. Music for the movie was provided by Richard Rodney Bennett. The main song on the soundtrack, Love Is All Around, sung by Wet, 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 remained on the pop charts for an incredible 15 weeks. Four Weddings and a Funeral was an unexpected success at the box office, grossing $246.7 million on unexpected success at the box office, and on a low budget of less than £5 million sterling, despite the fact that many of the cast and crew thought it was a bad movie as they filmed it. Grant himself thought his own performance was atrocious. But Four Weddings and a Funeral became the highest-grossing British film at that time and received Oscar nods for Best Picture and Best Screenplay. Hugh Grant received a Golden Globe Award for Best Actor, and the film received several BAFTA awards. Rotten Tomatoes said on its website that the movie featured irresistibly breezy humor and winsome performances from Hugh Grant and Andie MacDowell. Roger Ebert called the film delightfully sly, and that it was directed with light-hearted enchantment. The Guardian newspaper in the 20th anniversary retrospective of the film said that its influence on the British film industry, on romantic comedy writing, on the music charts, on funeral readings, and on haircuts was enormous. More than 70 actors auditioned for the role of Charles before Grant was selected. Curtis was originally opposed to giving the role to Grant because he thought Grant was too handsome to play a role he had modeled on himself. However, when Newell sent Grant the script, the actor was actually on the verge of ending his career because he wasn't getting any work. Since Grant needed money, he accepted the role, even though the salary offer was only for £40,000, because he was relatively unknown at the time. The other featured British actors were paid only £17,500 each, and Andie MacDowell took a 75% cut in pay, opting for a lump sum of $250,000 up front. But because the film was such a hit, she actually took home $3 million. In fact, the budget was so tight that the wedding extras had to bring their own formal wear. The British actor Rowan Atkinson played the vicar at 2 of the weddings, so Newell would not have to hire another actor for the second part. They were so cash poor that the Scottish wedding couldn't take place on location in Scotland. The future Home Secretary and Member of Parliament, Amber Rudd, was given the title of Aristocracy Coordinator when she recruited several aristocrats to make uncredited appearances as wedding extras, including the Marquis of Harrington and the Earl of Wootton. The film was shot primarily in London and the home counties, at sites which include Hampstead and Islington, where the final moments of the film took place in Highbury Terrace. Other locations included Greenwich Hospital, Letchworth in Surrey, Amersham in Buckinghamshire, and St. Bartholomew the Great and West Thurrock in Essex. The exterior shots of guests arriving at the funeral were filmed in Thurrock, overlooking the Thames River, with a backdrop of Dartford River crossing. There are also shots of stately mansions in Hampshire and Buckinghamshire, including Luton Hoo. When the first rough cut was shown, everyone hated the movie, but a repeat showing later to test audiences in Santa Monica, California, revealed that the viewers actually loved it. The American distributors of the film constantly objected to the language and sexual content of the film, believing that they were unsuitable for American audiences and TV showings. They particularly objected to the opening scene in which Charles and Scarlett continually utter the F word. When the movie was screened in conservative Salt Lake City to another test audience, all the Mormon members of the city council got up and stalked out of the theater. That experience led Newell and the cast to agree to reshooting the scene with the substitution of the British swear word bugger, substituted for at least some of the offending language. Plot summary. It is the present, and we meet a group of young, fashionable, upper-crust British socialites who continually run into each other at the weddings they all attend, all of them searching for love. One of them, Charles, is a charming, affable young man, a bit of a bumbler, and very much committed to his bachelor life. It strikes him that he's always attending weddings, but is never the lucky groom. One day, he lays eyes on a stunning American woman named Carrie, who is also a guest at one of the weddings. For Charles, it's love at first sight, even though he doesn't know it and even though he doesn't think he's looking for it. They keep running into one another at the various nuptials and even manage to have one magical night together. Charles is crushed when Carrie tells him that she's engaged to marry a handsome Scotsman in a lavish wedding north of the border among the heather and the haggis. Are Charlie and Carrie doomed to live unhappy lives apart from each other, or will they overcome the issues between them and live happily ever after? Fun facts about the film. Richard Curtis, the screenwriter, attended 65 weddings in only 11 years, but was never the groom. Curtis later related that he had actually been propositioned by an attractive woman at one of the weddings, but turned her down. He claimed that he later regretted that choice and turned the experience into the romance between Charles and Carrie. The occupations of the wedding guests are never revealed because Curtis thought this was something they would not have discussed at these events. To make Grant look nerdy, they deliberately styled him with shaggy hair, eyeglasses, and unflattering, ill-fitting clothes. Newell encouraged Grant to trip over his lines in order to give Charles a stammering, nervous quality. Grant was suffering with hay fever during the filming. At the UK premiere of 4 Weddings and a Funeral, Elizabeth Hurley, the supermodel who was then Grant's live-in girlfriend, wore a smashing Gianni Versace black safety pin dress, held together with nothing more than, you guessed it, safety pins, and completely upstaged him on the red carpet. Grant gave the producers a tape of his best man speech at his brother's wedding, and it helped to clinch the deal for him to play the role of Charles. Some people at the UK Leicester Square premiere wore wedding dresses at Curtis's suggestion. Grant had to learn sign language to communicate with his brother in the film, who was played by David Bowie. Alan Cumming has a cameo role at Gareth's funeral. Gareth jokingly convinces another wedding guest that he knows Oscar Wilde, but he's pulling the guy's leg. Wilde died in 1900. The Mini Cooper was used in another film, Oh Bean, Black to School, Mrs. Bean, from 1994. Things to look for. Hugh Grant using sign language. Grant's shaggy haircut, stammering, and bumbling style. Garrett's Oscar Wilde ruse. Wet, 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 singing Love Is All Around on the soundtrack. Alan Cumming's cameo. Rowan Atkinson presiding over not 1, but 2 weddings. All those great location sites. Aristocratic extras wearing their own formal attire. Now, it's time to view 4 Weddings and a Funeral. Sit back, nibble on some snacks. Remember, it may take a few minutes for the film to roll. Enjoy.